Welcome to another edition. We are here live in our remote studio. A lot of things going on. You can see some things in the backdrop. Fall webinar series 2023, September 13th. Myself, Anthony Tosi, and Rick Koester. Been kind of busy here working in the shop trying to set up this kind of live approach with new display models and samples to kind of bring you some more technical. It's not going to be a basic class today. So we're going to be discussing Fujitsu multi-position air handler and their STHP, which is basically a PTAC approach. Neat stuff happening. We're going to get into some of the deeper setups, what's really needed to consider when sizing, maybe the application itself. You know, this is a dual purpose kind of piece of equipment, meaning it's a heat pump. So we just don't size it for the worst case scenario. If it's the heating load or the cooling load, we have to consider both of the seasons. And if you don't, we do have some function settings and capabilities, but it really does come down to that initial sizing and selection. So we'll go a little deeper with that. Myself, Wales Darby, 25 years October. Interesting enough, been doing training probably the last 12 years. Did many roles as far as when Radiant was a big boom and really designing and trying to troubleshoot and keep people off the edge or the ledge of jumping. But, you know, it's been an interesting career in this industry with comfort, right? So that's the thing to remember. It is a business, right? Heating, cooling, comfort, energy now. So these pieces of equipment, we will do all of that, but we have to be a little bit smarter and understanding it's a different piece of equipment, all right? Just be aware there are handouts for you guys, okay? So in your desk, in your dashboard there, it says handouts. You click on it, it might open up, and there's some PDFs for you guys to grab and take with you. So there is a little bit of door prize for you there. When we talk about webinars, if it's something new, I mean, we've been doing this for 4 years. So every time we talk about this, I can't believe we have to talk about this, but you know, you have the ability to expand, open up. You can detach if you have multiple screens to make it larger, what you want to see, certainly. You can see just a presentation. It's not a big presentation. It's really us talking in front of the equipment. We'll have some some live approach to the technology you have in the palm of your hands. And as well, if there's any problems with audio, hey, I can't hear you, or watching the chat box, interaction is good. But if you have problems with audio, sometimes it's very simple, just switching from cell phone to PC and back, and it kind of regenerates itself. So we are pretty big on not just talking. We want to hear from you guys. There is a chat box, still very accessible to reach out to you guys. So put something in there. Hello, how are you? Good morning. We enjoy to see where you guys are coming from. So if you don't mind, hey, joining you from Albuquerque, New Mexico, I don't really care. So I
think we tried to hit all 50 states, right?
Yeah, we tried to get in there. I think we did have Alaska once.
Yeah, we had Alaska.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, just make sure everyone's hearing us. Put in hello, good morning, and we will continue. Rick, tell us a little about yourself, if you like.
Yeah, 6 years, Wales Darby, came out of the field. Good, a lot of response. Appreciate you guys.
Good morning.
So yeah, 6 years, Wales Darby, went pretty quick. So came out of the field after 20 years, just about. That's a good rain behind us.
Yeah.
So yeah, just came out and you know, really loving what I'm doing, working with Anthony here and the rest of the group. You know, myself, Anthony on the New York side, and then we got Rob, Jim, and John over on the New Jersey side. So you'll see us throughout the next couple of weeks. I guess we're going to almost December now.
It's fall.
For our fall series.
That's
so
right.
This will be kicking it off. And like Anthony said, you know, we've got to have these displays behind us we're going to utilize today, trying to go through some of the function settings. You know, we talk about dual fuel, supplemental heat, stuff like that. So we wanted to kind of get a little interactive with you, show you guys what we've been doing the last couple of weeks. You know, we've been making a lot of visits with these display carts between distributors, contractors themselves, you guys, you know, getting out in front of your installers and making you comfortable with the machine before it's in the house.
Yeah, applications has been a little bit of, you know, some things we need to be a little concerned about. So absolutely, we try and maybe hit upon some of those pitfalls and what we're seeing out there with you guys.
Before I go back, I'm going to go back to that real quick. So like Anthony mentioned with the handouts, we got the brand new 2023 going into 2024 here, the new H Series Air Stage catalog. So a lot of good information there.
Rebranding too, if you just kind of say that,
right.
The Air
See
Stage.
the colors on the screen right now, the catalog to my left, your right, or maybe your left. We put that in there. We put the what we call our quick reference guide, which is in the top here. Let's see if we can get a little. Is this going to work for me today? Yeah, it looks like it. There we go. This little guy here is a quick reference guide we put together maybe about a year ago, I want to say. We started utilizing this in some of our trainings. But this is really every reference or resource you need in the Fujitsu world, whether it be an app, like you mentioned, the websites we're utilizing, some of the training guides we have in there. Really anything that you need Fujitsu is going to be on that one sheet. So that's a nice one. Underneath it, that's a little piece that we put together. We're going to talk about dual fuel, supplemental heat, stuff like that. So that's a little cheat sheet for you. I was giving this to a lot of my installers where it has the function codes. I went through and took the liberty of, basically giving them the settings.
Right.
This way, when your installer's in front of the machine, he doesn't have to sit there in the installation guide. It's still good to review it, but it's giving you everything you need to set. Then we're going to take it a step further today. We're going to show you an easier way with the newer remote control, how to set those functions. And then our Wales Darby line sheet, all the manufacturers we represent, as well as our contact info is in there too. So,
If I may, just on the rebranding of Fujitsu,
yeah.
right? The Bluebird, the Halcyon, is kind of flown off. It's gone. So years in the past, we had Halcyon, we had Air Stage, and that was kind of referenced to VRF. They've now went to H series, like you saw maybe in the, the V, the R, and the J series and all that stuff. So everything is now Fujitsu, Air Stage, and then you break it down by series. H, which was Halcyon, was always the residential. So the catalog here is the full residential handout for you guys.
right. So we got some people in West Virginia. Love it.
Good morning,
Joe and students. All right. So is that a school, Joe? That's pretty cool. Appreciate you guys joining us.
How many students?
Yeah, how many students you have with you today?
Cool to hear.
Mr. Burke, it's good seeing you on the screen again. Yes, if you have to leave, we will have recordings. You beat us to it. So we'll talk about that towards the end too. We'll show you a way to get those. WalesDarby.com.
Yep.
Again, another good resource. Talk about website changes, something we went through ourselves probably about a year ago within. So we got some good info there. All the videos that we've done, past, present stuff, is all going to be on that website, so you guys will have access to it.
All right, so where do you want to begin? First one?
I guess, what we're going to cover today is really kind of, like Anthony mentioned, go over the application side. We're seeing a couple things in the field we really want to just touch base on, when it comes to sizing equipment. So we're going to go through that a little bit in the beginning. And we're going to talk about the supplemental and dual fuel solutions, whether you're chasing a rebate, you have somebody in the home that's already got a heating system, oil, gas, whatever it may be, we can play friendly with them without needing third-party controllers or, somebody wants their Honeywell thermostat or Nest thermostat. We can do a lot more than that thermostat will ever do, just without function codes and stuff like that. And that's where we're going to get into that example. Don't mind the noise. I don't even know if you guys can hear it, but this is a true New York training. You're going to get subways, trains, cars, the whole
Long Island Railroad. Woohoo!
That's a fun thing. So talking about those, how do we utilize, whether it be in our case in the display behind me over my right shoulder, we have an electric strip in there. So our second source today is going to be an electric strip, but that could be anything from hydrofoils, maybe an existing hydronic oil system, furnace, whatever it wants to be. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Yeah, and then we'll get into actually setting those function codes, running the machine. We're hoping, we'll see what the cameras can pick up for you today, but a lot of it's going to be more explanation, giving you an idea on what you're going to see, and then maybe we can get this thing in front of you guys. That's the end goal. And then we're going to touch base on the STHP, the split terminal. Like Anthony mentioned, it's a PTAC replacement. That's right behind him. So we're going to just cover that briefly. Just go over some of the features there and some of the pretty cool things that we like about it.
We're going to get out of your way shortly, so you'll be able to see a little bit more about the equipment.
Correct. But, and then the Q&A, as always, it doesn't have to be at the end. We appreciate the questions throughout. Your interactions, really what makes these things go. We could sit here and talk about this for a half an hour and walk out the door.
Yeah. Has anyone installed any of these two pieces of equipment, these offerings from Fujitsu, or maybe similar by others? Just kind of curious. Or have you ever seen the STHB before? Are you aware that we do have a PTAC now? It's a 9 and a 12, you know, like we'll get into more broad stroking of this, but just kind of seeing if you guys are aware of this equipment. But 2020, the multi-position was released. So that's 4 years roughly in my book.
Absolutely.
4 different models, you know, kind of neat stuff here.
Yeah, as you can see on the screen.
Looks very North American.
So that's where we started, to your point, Anthony, right? The 24, 30, 36, and 48. We released 4 models going back to August 2020, where we started. So this isn't a brand new system, but there still is a lot to talk about. Awareness is definitely a key. A lot of people have seen it. You know, there's nothing special about an air handler. You know, it's a box. You guys have seen that before. It's really all the functionality of that box and the board that's inside of it that makes it Fujitsu, you know, and what we can adapt to. I want to say within the last year or 2, maybe, was when we released the H models. You know, timing on it goes quite quick, so my timing could be off real fast. But
within 2 years.
Yeah. Right. So we offered the H model, which is our extra low temperature heating, our -15 right unit. So that would be in the 2.5, 3, and 4 ton platform. You can see, and I believe it is on the specs here. I might have cut it off. I think I did. But your standard units are still -5 degrees out of the box in heating. So really what we're getting out of the H models is really not many BTUs. We don't really change the BTUs. It's more of the defrost cycles, the machine itself, the physical, you know, machine, metal shroud compared to a plastic, stuff like that really changes. But talking about application, you know, and I made some notes yesterday. We were prepping for this. And, you know, there's 3 things that we're seeing, right? It's doing a full manual J like you see on the screen. This is an example of a job that I've been working on, you know, a little bit of I guess you can call it a problem job. It's a complaint, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So manual Js are going to be key, and we're going to talk about them a lot going forward, especially with high efficiency equipment. But when you're chasing rebates and stuff like that, and maybe sizing out of the catalog, and you know, I know you love talking about that. So I kind of put this little spec sheet here out of the catalog where you see a lot of numbers. You know, your rated numbers, your minimum and max cooling, minimum max heating. And if we are doing the right thing by doing a load calc, we can still get ourselves in trouble just by looking at the catalog and picking a piece of equipment. You know, you really got to get into the back end, get into the what we call our design and technical manual, where I'm going to pull up a couple charts here to kind of walk through some of that stuff, and you know, stop me whenever you want. But you know, when you look at where we are on Long Island, and that's, you know, Long Island, New Jersey, our market's pretty much, you know, weather-wise, we're pretty similar in our territory here. But when we talk about heating and cooling loads, they're pretty drastic, you know, as far as the difference goes, you know, where you can see this is about I want to say a 1,200 square foot home, very local to us here. Cooling load, 25,000 BTUs with a heating load of 49,000, right? It's almost double the cooling load there. So trying to pick a piece of equipment for both seasons is going to be very difficult, you know, and this is where what I'm seeing, and I've had a couple, you know, instances already where we're chasing a rebate, right? So that's where I kind of said, you know, sizing how we are applying the equipment based on what, you know, an actual load, right? A rebate, you know, or, you know, maybe we're trying to work with some kind of supplemental fuel or something. Maybe there is something else in the house we want to work with. So knowing what we have available to us, again, everything's going to go back to that design and technical.
That could be a balance point in which we size for the 2 seasons, and know we then need to play nice with a dual fuel approach. Maybe there's an existing boiler, or maybe there's another piece of equipment in the house that we can switch over to and not ride a larger piece of equipment just to carry all the BTU load that we think we need, and then we suffer maybe on the summer side. Because then it's way too large, it's short cycles, the humidity is a factor, and that's where I think you were sitting with this past issue.
Yeah,
right. 100%. So I've been doing this analogy, and if it kind of sits or helps people, just think about what you size for heating. You know, the worst winter night, let's call it 5 degrees outside, and you want to maintain maybe 70 in. So if you look at the spread between my hands, it's pretty wide. Or if you go now to the other season, it's a 95-degree day, and you want to maintain maybe to, like, you know, 70, 72. So you can see now that load is considerably smaller. But in that summer load, it's the factor of humidity. That's the largest part of the comfort side that we want to achieve. So now we just grossly oversize, CYA it out. You know, we don't want to have complaints, and then here comes the summer, and all of a sudden, Yeah, we can't get rid of the humidity.
And that's what Jeff's saying right now, and that's 100%, you know, and that's where that rebate, you know, we're hearing a lot in the Northeast and all over, I'm guessing, you know, rebate dollars that are out there and trying to put everybody on a heat pump and all of that. And that's great, you know, if we're doing the sizing, we understand what the machine can do. So hopefully after today, you'll have a better understanding of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, so just looking at this heating load, right, for 49,250 BTUs, you know, you look at some of these numbers down below here, and I'm gonna go to one just the 4-ton, just because that's where it would point me, right, 49,000 BTUs. And you can see I got a rated down here of 53,000 BTUs. I got a, let's say, minimum and max from 11,000 up to 54,000, right? So if I'm sizing out of the catalog and I'm taking my heat load now and looking at that and saying, all right, that 48 is going to be my machine because I can do up to 54,000, you know, BTUs, you know, we got to be careful. You know, it's when we look at the chart, and I think the first one I have here, this is out of our design and technical manual. And I'll try and zoom in a little bit, you know, a couple of these spots here. But
we technically, we call them sometimes D&T just to keep it short.
Correct.
Design and technical manual. Every model of Fujitsu will have a D&T. Both heating and cooling.
Let's see if this guy works. Perfect. So looking at this chart on the left-hand side, you're going to see some dry bulb temperatures. This is going to be our outdoor temperature.
This is for heating.
Right? For heating. And then along the top, and I hope you guys can follow this, I'm not too jerky with this thing, but up on the top, you'll see some temperatures, 60, 65, across the top heading there, right? Those are your indoor temperatures. So if we were to say a 70-degree set point, and in our neck of the woods, we're doing about 15 degrees is where we're doing our loads from, right?
Yeah.
I have a 14-degree, which is going to be the third row down. If I go to my 70,
Yep,
see, a little delay here on a pointer. But if I go to 70 in the third row down, you can see here I'm getting about 38,000 BTUs on a 15-degree day, right? That 38,000, I'm 10,000 short of my total load, right? So that total load is for the worst possible day, or what we call our design day. Right, so I'm short 10,000 BTUs. So can I cover the full load with this piece of equipment? No, I can't. You know, but this is where we start, and I think you mentioned it, the balance point of understanding what can we get down to. Let's call it 14 degrees. I'm giving you 38,000 BTUs. I need an extra 10,000. Well, now that's where we get into that conversation of supplemental heat, whether it be electric strip,
Sure.
you know, maybe a current oil system or something like that, and it's very easy to install, as you're going to see in a few minutes here. But even if this was going to take care of most of our heating, I would say, you know, and you know these
How
numbers,
often is it 14?
right?
It's so rare.
Exactly. That's where I want to say, like, when we look at our bin data and everything else, I think most of our winter where we are is in that 40-degree range.
You should do 32,
You know?
40, yeah.
Yeah, so
Between there.
even going up to
70
you're right.
again. You're at
So if we're at 32, please hold.
48.
Right. So if we're looking at 32, that is
46.
5. Yeah, so we're about, we're right about 45,000.
Go over to
Oh,
70.
I'm on a 65.
Yeah, go
Sorry.
over to 70. I think it's 46 and 51.
Yep.
Yeah, so just under 47,000, and at 41 degrees, it's about 50,000. So
Not quite. But yeah, so we're about 46,000 BTUs.
put a sweater on.
Right. So we're going to cover most of that heating load, you know, at that temperature there. And that's where, we might be fine in heating, but what's going to happen if I put a 4-ton system in, this 48,000, right? And I put this in, and we cover the heating load for most winters. But now I got a cooling load of 25,000 BTUs, right? Mm-hmm. So now we look at the cooling side of that chart, right? Same thing, just a couple more columns here. But if we're looking at in our design case, we're talking 86-degree day, right? So on an 86-degree day, the 70-degree set point we'll go with. We'll go for that. Okay.
So TC is total capacity.
Yep.
You have a couple extra columns. You have KW, so there's your input power.
There we go. If we look on that row there, our 86 is going to be
How far down?
4 from the bottom.
Oh yeah, I see it there.
Right? So we're getting about 41,000 BTUs total capacity. I apologize for the Zoom thing. It's a little finicky for us, but
It went in and out. It actually widens.
It works. Does it? Okay.
Widens the circle.
Yeah, so we're talking, that's a lot of BTUs, 41,000 when we got a total load of 25 on an 86-degree day, right? So on a 70-degree day, we probably need less than 20,000 BTUs maybe for cooling. right? But we got a 4-ton system. Now, what's nice about an inverter is, yes, we can ramp down and we will maintain temperature, you know? So this system electrically will perform great all summer long because we don't have to ramp up more than 50% of our capacity, probably most of the summer. Right. So the electrical usage of that machine is going to be very, very low. But we're not going to really run that much, so we're not going to pull humidity out of the home. And that's where we're seeing a lot of those problems. And I think, Jeff, you made a comment about the humidity as well. So we got a couple comments here. So we'll go, as we keep going, we'll go through these questions. But so in this case here, we looked at a 2.5-ton system, right? So for that same capacity here, and you guys should be able to zoom into this, you know, at home, so I'm not going to go nuts with the pointer here, but, you know, on an 86-degree day, when I come over to that 70-degree column here, you know, we're talking about, I'm getting about 29,000 BTUs out of this machine, right? So that's on an 86-degree day. So I get a 4,000 BTUs more than what I need, you know, if I need it, right? So I'm going to cover the entire cooling load here, and that's where I'd rather see the 2.5-ton system go in. You know, you're pulling, in most cases, if you're doing a replacement, you're pulling out a central air system. They never had heat before, right? So really the heat that we give them is, I look at it as a bonus, right? If you're gonna do a replacement, you give them the replacement cost of an apples to apples comparison, and then you give them the upgrade, which is us, where we're gonna get some heat and we can cover, maybe save you some fuel oil.
75% of the heating season.
Exactly, 75%, I would say it's a great number.
Probably even more, but.
And you're going to see in a second here, right? So that's the cooling side. So now we cover our cooling side, no problem. We have the humidity control that we need. We look at the heating side of that, and yeah, on a 14-degree day, I'm not going to give you the total numbers that you need. At 14, I'm going to give you about 25,000 BTUs at 70 degrees in the home, right? So 25,000 BTUs, I'm giving you half of what you need on a 14-degree day. So this is where we'll kind of go back and look, you know, at those higher temperatures. We'll see on a 41-degree day, I'm giving you just about, was it 30, it's about 35, and then a little bit, 36,000 BTUs. So I'm giving you 36,000 BTUs on a 41-degree, 32-degree day, is that what I said?
36.21 on 41?
Yeah. So looking at those numbers, you know, and there's no right or wrong answer there, I can take any one of those numbers. Now, I'm probably pretty close to those, you know, as far as a 41-degree day. I don't need 49,000 BTUs. I need that on a 14, 15-degree day. You talk about a 41 or a 47-degree day, I might only need 35,000, 34,000 BTUs in a home or to heat that home. And this is where now I can, all right, we'll match to there. And we have a couple different things that we can do with our system through function codes as far as controlling maybe that supplemental heat, you know, whatever we need to make up, right? So we're going to talk about that in a few seconds here. But I hope this helps, you know, just looking at what we call our D&T guide or our design and technical, being able to utilize this, see the exact numbers that you're going to get out of the machine, and not using the catalog.
Let me just say something too. The catalog is downloadable by all people.
Yep.
Fujitsu's website is open to homeowners. It's a lot of information. It shouldn't be used by the professional because it's limited. The D&T is the true data. And there's even some other issues like line set issues and distance. So we're not doing that today, but don't use the catalog. And you got to understand the power of the numbers. And that is doing what we call heat loss and the heat gain, right? So those are the two seasons. We want to know what the factor of infiltration, the house's insulation, and all those values that we should have been doing forever. And, you know, we just kind of rule of thumb it.
Yeah.
You know, we listen to some guy at the counter or what he does or how many BTUs per square. But, you know, house construction is so far different in the last 15, you know, it's been really changing with spray foams and just insulating our homes. You know, as I jokingly say, building a thermos. You know, so oversizing will certainly put some issues into your job sites.
Yeah, Jeff made a comment too, which I think you're right, Jeff. It's everybody, right? We oversize and rely on the variable side, the inverter side of the equipment to kind of save us.
You never oversize it. You hear it all the time.
Yeah. So you know, there's some things, and we've played with, and just having some of these humidity issues, and I don't know about other manufacturers, but what I found really interesting on the Fujitsu side, and I actually learned this from my father in his home and what he was telling me and how he operates his Fujitsu system. But we have something called an economy mode, you know, and when we're in a situation where we want to cover the entire heating load maybe for that rebate, right? But we might have some of these issues in the cooling side of things, right? We have this feature called economy. And what economy does is it basically knocks off 30% of our total capacity, right? So when we're talking about the short cycling and stuff and not getting the humidity control we need, you know, what we find just kind of playing around with some of these features is if I drop that 4-ton system now into, you know, economy,
Sure.
and now I only operate at no more than 70% of the system, right? In most of your summer days, you're going to be able to operate as a smaller system and get the humidity control you may need, you know, and it's, you know, it's hard to really know what that's going to be like beforehand, but,
right,
you know, if you're in that situation,
there's an option.
You know, that is something I would take a look at before.
So derating it a little bit with simple economy button on the remote control, now it's going to run longer, more exposure to that coil, and humidity is going to drop out. Your problem goes away.
You know, another thing we like to, you know, I know we brought it up in, you know, some of our Fujitsu trainings in the past. You know, we talk about like total capacities, right? We've done that once or twice. When we talk about total capacities, these charts are great, right? But we got to understand that these charts are with a set distance of line set, right? So I don't know off the top of my head, I don't remember on this model, you know, what this one was or what these were. You know, I think it's something like 25 feet to 24 feet,
7 inches.
A line set, you know.
Zero difference of elevation.
Yeah, no elevation between your air handler and your condenser, stuff like that. You know, that's where these numbers are tested, or I guess the numbers we get are from those tests.
Right.
Well, now if we start, you know, going up 3 stories,
that's basically what it comes down to.
Correct. You know, these units we can go the distances I saw when they came out. You know, we talk about our multi-zone systems, but on a single zone system, 2 of the models we can go up to 164 feet, and 2 of them we can go up to 230 feet away. You know,
one way,
which is great. Yeah, we can go a distance, but there is going to be a capacity loss, and the only way you're going to find that information is in that design and technical, right? So we got to make sure we do the load calcs, figure out what we need, and then make sure we have those numbers, you know, by our side. I want to say it was Joseph made a comment. I don't have the charts on here, you know, for the high heat or extra low temperature models, but you can look at this and then just see at the bottom of the screen there, you're not getting any more BTUs. You know, they call it, you know, from the 48, the high end is 55,000, right? So it's 1,000 BTUs more. Typically, we don't change the performance of the system going from, you know, a standard model to an extra low temperature heating. You're not getting more BTUs out of the system.
Protection. Mostly.
Yeah, it's mostly protection, you know, where you're going to get the defrost cycles are going to be a little bit quicker. You know, you're not going to get latched up in that and lose the heat in the home.
Much further north, obviously, conditions are harsher, so everything about the equipment itself has been robust, you know, built up. Metal, no plastic, wires, base pan heaters, larger capacity or cabinet sizes for
the coil, right? We need more volume of refrigerant in an outdoor unit for the defrost.
So it's not so much performance, it's a fallacy, and we want to sell to the H and thinking it's going to be, you know, a no callback mode, and that's not the case.
Yeah, so Jeff's mentioning, you know, very hard to try to achieve correct charge with gauges. Yeah, it is. And that's, you know, when we talk about critical charge, you know, again, with mini splits in general or inverter technology, you know, it's hard to beat a computer, you know, and the computer is looking for a certain number. You're going to see that number on your gauges, you know, and I think that's what you're talking about. That's why we calculate everything and we weigh it in. You know, that's the important part of what we do. So having a scale, recovery machine, and all of that stuff is a necessity for working on these units.
I think it's fair to say we always want to point at the machine as being the issue, when really sometimes it's the sizing and the selection.
Yeah.
And we don't want to kind of look at that man in the mirror all the time, because that's a hard look. So we need to change that approach and start there and realize. I always jokingly say, do it for your own home.
Right.
You own a home, land, size up your home, do a heat loss, be the guinea pig, and then compare to your house, your equipment.
Right.
And then you realize, like, yeah, I do hear the boiler. I hear things short cycling. Why? It's grossly oversized. So that's killing your efficiency. It's killing the equipment, and there's no comfort. So.
Correct. Yeah, Ray, there are some options. Ray's asking if Fujitsu offers a furnace like coil package system that'll work like the multi-position air handler, but hook up to one of our outdoor condensers. There's some things we can do there. It might get a little pricey for you there, but there is some stuff between our J series and our H series that, yeah, there's some things that can be put together, and even our unitary from there. But Ray, if you have any specific questions, please feel free to reach out to us if you have those type of projects.
just
to work with you.
we're going to get into this next little spin-off into what we call function settings, and just kind of input here. I'd like to know how many of you guys with, let's say, the Fujitsu product line, are you aware of the defaults or the options to change features, and they're called function settings. Are you using those? Are you taking advantage of the onboard technology that Fujitsu has given? We just need to access it through our remote controls. It's in every installation, every D&T service manual. I'm not even sure if it's in there, but
Yep, absolutely.
But there is this forever ever section of the installation manual instructions of function settings. Really neat stuff. We teach it a lot. We do regurgitate a lot. So I'm just kind of curious at this point, are you guys even tapping into the basics of a wall-mounted Fujitsu and knowing there's function settings that you can change defaults from the factory? And that might help your applications if you're having problems. Right. Maybe extending set points plus or minus 8 degrees. If you don't know that, that's in the function settings. 30-31, right? That's cooling and heating. You can independently change your heating shift the load, shift the set point or the thermistor by plus or minus 8 degrees. You do the same thing for heating as well. Yep. That's just one. That's just one. There's a few others.
Keith, appreciate that. Yep, he's aware of them. It's
cool.
Here to understand them. Perfect. So
excellent.
And we're going to go through them now. We're going to go through a couple. And as you can see, this is one of the handouts there in your handouts here. It's a little PDF. And on the back side of it with these highlighted pieces there, those are some of the most common when we're talking about supplemental heat and adjusting those function codes. This little sheet, this was I want to say this was like a startup guide that Fujitsu put out for the multi-position air handler. But a lot of these function codes, to Anthony's point, are cross-compatible. You know, they're compatible with all the newer equipment. So when we're talking about hydrocoil, supplemental heat, dual fuel, if you have a single zone wall mount, like even this STHB, the split terminal behind us, right, that you can do all of the same stuff, you know, hooking up to a furnace or oil system. You know, this is not just specific to the multi-position behind me here. We're going to use this as an example because I think it's most common.
We used to never want to play nice with others, and now we're playing with others, right, as far as achieving some of the rebates. Yeah,
correct.
Sure.
Right. So I know, especially in New York, you know, some of the rebate dollars, they've changed over the years, and they go back and forth and all of that, and they're adding new stuff to these programs. And one of the additions, I think, in the last couple of years has been something called integrated controls.
Right.
You know, and I don't know what that dollar value is today through the utilities, but I thought it was about $500, you know, at one point, where I'm watching people take off our remote control and go get a thermostat converter for X amount of dollars, go get a Nest thermostat or an Ecobee for X amount of dollars, you know, right, just to get a $500 rebate, and they lose in all the functionality of the Fujitsu system, you know. So you paid for, or the homeowner paid for this inverter piece of equipment, and just to get an integration rebate and get that $500, you know, we really dumbed down the system, right, you know, and
you neutered.
Everything that you were trying to do, we can do with our system, you know, through our remote controls and the function codes of the actual air handler or the evaporator. So we're going to look at a couple of them. This one example, we're going to do electric strip behind me, but this is the same exact thing. If we're doing a hydrocoil, the possibilities are really endless. It's your creativity. As you can see on the screen there, there's two parts needed. I give them down here for you. Parts needed. It's one of them being a rib relay, and the other one being what we call an external connect kit. I want to say I brought that. I have that behind me here, so we'll take a look. But it's really nothing more than a Molex plug with two pigtails off of it, and we're going to get 12 volts DC out of our board. And anytime we need to turn on that supplemental heat or anything else we want to turn on, right? So there's a lot of different things, and to Anthony's point, also going back into the install manual, you really got to look at that install manual for that specific piece of equipment, because not all the function codes are going to be there across the board. You know, so once you get in and dig into that install manual, you'll see everything that's available for that piece of equipment. So you guys have access to this, so feel free downloading that. I'm going to get rid of this PowerPoint real quick so you guys can see a little bit more.
I put it out there. I'm not sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't often see this a lockout feature. I think it's a 95. Maybe it's not 95, but there was the ability to turn any of our Fujitsus into a cooling only piece of equipment or heating only equipment. But I don't ever really see it listed in the feature, in the function settings.
Yeah, there's some hidden stuff.
Yeah, there's some hidden stuff. I wanted to see the master list, you know, like how many numbers does it go, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. So we have, if you guys are not aware, we have something called the Connect website, you know, and that's a website that you guys all have access to. It's on that resource guide as a QR code. But that's a website that you don't have to log in. You know, you put in the model number of the piece of equipment you're working on. You're going to get every manual you need. You're also going to get the parts breakdown and all of that stuff. And, you know, one of the things, I'm trying to remember where I was going with that, getting onto that website, that's where you're going to find some of the product bulletins and stuff like that. You know, we have that also on our Zendesk page where you're going to find these pages, heating, cooling, lockout, you know, not going to be in a manual. We don't want homeowners or anybody really seeing that. But if there is an application, we have a bulletin for that. And a lot of those bulletins, you have to log in sometimes to go see.
Knowing that actually saved the project out here on the island because it was a pool house. And the inspector knocked it down because it was a heating and cooling heat pump, Fujitsu. So we made them aware, hey, we can lock this out, and now it's a cooling only. They were concerned about heating and then having the space maybe inhabited, and then it's you know, it's not code.
Yeah.
So we simply went in and changed the function settings, and now all of a sudden the contractor was happy again.
Yeah. And Jeff, to your points, Jeff's mentioned that some of the thermostats can be, you know, kind of problematic, you know, and if are you saying Fujitsu thermostats? Are you saying by others, like an Ecobee or a Nest or something like that? Let's see if he pops in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some of the other thermostats, Sensi. Yeah. So any one of those, the Flare Puck, I've seen some of them where, you know, they sound great.
It's not bulletproof, but stick with the product, stick with the manufacturer.
Exactly.
It's engineered. I always jokingly say anything that says Fujitsu, it's already been engineered. Right. You know, so.
And you're going to see with one of the newer remotes that we just released over the last couple months, and we have behind me here, we're going to go through some of the function changes there. So you're going to see a big difference from even going from our last touchscreen remote control. I don't want to call them thermostats because they're not. They're remote controls until we activate a sensor. We can make it work like a thermostat, but they are remote controls. So we're going to go through that, and you're going to see the ease of going through what we're used to as far as function settings to now a whole new world. So we're going to have some fun with that.
Cool.
All right, so let's get to that portion of it. So like I was saying, so what we've been doing, rolling these displays around to our distributor partners and you guys as contractors get in front of your installers, right? That's been a big deal for us. Just trying to get your hands on it. I know once you're comfortable and you've kind of played around with it and you've set all the parameters and here with the machine and having a clear cover, putting some LEDs in here, having some fun with it, we can actually activate the you know, strip heater, not actually the elements, we don't have the amperage for that stuff, but we're actually getting the LEDs to kind of simulate that call, and you guys can actually see that, all right, we set the function codes properly. So this is a great tool for your installers. We've had a lot of fun with this. So we're going to go through a couple things. So basic system, I'm going to kind of zoom in here, get out of the way, just so you guys can kind of see what's inside the machine itself. We'll let this camera adjust for us and get into place. But for the most part, the machine itself is nothing more than an air handler, right? Coil, blower, you guys have seen it all before. We've had a partnership with REIT for many years now. So that's where a lot of this has come from. And really what it comes down to right here is this is Fujitsu, everything right here. The rest is pretty standard to what you guys have seen in the field. So not too much of a learning curve really for you there. You'll see there's a couple bundles of wires here. We have some accessories. We've got all the bells and whistles on this. We have a remote air thermistor in there now, an accessory. So instead of using the one that's in the machine, we can remote mount something, maybe into the space, something a little bit more accurate sensing, I guess you can say. We have our Wi-Fi. You can kind of see this little EMI filter on here. So we got our Wi-Fi device plugged into there. And I'm not sure, you probably see it maybe on the computer here, but right where my finger is a Molex plug coming off the board. And this is where we would adapt. And then right underneath that install manual, I have plugged here right now. Oh, it's in the back here. So this is that plug. And you guys might be able to see it here. You know, this is that part number. Maybe a little glare there, but it's nothing more than a Molex plug, and it's so small I can't even get it on the computer. But
hold it against your phone.
There you go. So we got this little Molex guy here, right? Little pigtails. So that's where you're going to hook up your thermostat wire or right directly to the brick relay. That is going to plug in directly here to our board. And now the rest of it is just function settings. So the actual physical hardware hooking up to this system is pretty simple, right? So that shouldn't be too difficult there. What else do we have on here? Let's go out, zoom back out.
Yeah.
You know, one of the sensors, like I said, you know, going from what was in the machine as a remote air thermistor, you know, something like this guy, this comes in the machine. Well, now we can give you an accessory that goes maybe in a hallway, maybe in a master bedroom, somewhere in a living space where we're now sensing temperature a little bit better than what we were before.
How far can we extend that? You know?
I believe it comes with a 33
Okay.
cable, and then from there, right? So we want to go through with the remote controls. We're going to zoom in one more time. Hopefully nobody gets motion sickness here. You're going to be my banner. Perfect. So you're going to see the two remote controls that we've set up on this machine. So hopefully that looks like it might have focused a little bit. Yeah. So you can see the lower remote control, pretty standard. You guys have seen this before. You get the little light on. I put it on an angle just so you guys can see the screen. So that's our UZ5 control. It's more commercial. You know, it's a little bit more cumbersome for some people, homeowners especially getting in. There's a lot of menus, a lot of features. It does on installation, when you start to program this, it does ask you if it is a residential or commercial application. So when you click residential, kind of hides a lot of the commercial features, but this was developed for before the rebranding, as Anthony was saying, our air stage equipment, our J and V series stuff. So now with all the new equipment going forward, being a 2-wire platform, that brings us into our H series, our residential market. Above that remote control is this guy here. This is the new Kagami remote control. Right? So this looks a lot nicer than anything we've ever seen. Very similar in functions to pretty much all the thermostats you've had, you know, as far as Nests and all of that. It's not a Wi-Fi thermostat. It is Bluetooth. The Bluetooth connectivity is 4 function settings alone. So that's been, we've had some fun with that. As you can see on the screen, you guys might be able to pick that out. It looks like that's our mobile learning center that's in our background here over New York City. So you have the ability to even upload a picture. You know, this is great when you do get into some of the commercial applications where maybe you got a logo, company logo, something like that you want on the screen. You can choose to have it sit there static like I have it right now, or, you know, it can disappear and you just get the mirror finish of the remote control. And I think that's one of the nicer features of it, is it kind of blends in and adapts to the walls and everything that's around. If I click on this picture here, it's going to show us now the different modes. And it looks like you guys can see that pretty well. Yep. And so as I swipe through here, we get into our modes as far as fan, cooling, heating. If I scroll down, I'm going to go to heating mode. Right? So there's our heating mode. We get the red light. We get a light once the machine's on. Down below here, we get a red light to show us what mode it is in. That light does not go off, unfortunately. Come on, once you turn it on. Then I got my fan speeds, and then we got some settings and features here, economy, weekly timers, stuff like that, some of the back-end stuff. So everything that I mentioned, the Bluetooth, where we can program this remote control, we can do it over the phone, or we can do it locally, just like you would any other remote control, which is really nice. So
What do you mean you can do it remotely?
Through the Bluetooth. Not anything more than that.
Okay. So someone at the shop.
But you do it, you have to be within X amount of distance of the remote control. Yeah. So that would be one thing. So like Anthony mentioned before with the manuals and stuff like that, if I want to zoom in, zoom out, I'm going to keep it like this for a second here. What I wanted to do is I kind of played with this earlier, and I put together a little logo here where we have a little database just to kind of show everybody, and we'll see how you guys, yeah, it looks like we'll be able to see it on the phone. So that works out nice. This is the AirStage REMO for remote, right? This is an app. This will help you connect to the remote control. So you'll see we got 3 different, basically, templates on this app. And what we're able to do here is set, you know, these function settings ahead of time. And this is, I really like this for the installers. You know, you don't have to explain to everybody what needs to be done, but if I set a template, and as you can see, I might even bring this closer so you guys can see this. See how this works. There we go. So, might zoom in there. But here it says hydronic coil, right? If you can't see it, take my word. But hydronic coil, what I have the ability to do now is actually pre-program what all those function codes are. So you remember that sheet that we had up on the screen a couple minutes ago. 6 function codes, right? I can preset those function codes and make a template of the hydronic coil. And now I just go into the remote control, connect to it with the phone, and it's now going to send all of those signals. So just to kind of get an idea, use an example here, I'm going to go back just so you guys can see the logo data and just see how fast some of this stuff is. I created something the other day. It tells you what the sizes need to be. You check the mark next to what you want to send to the remote control. And you'll see the remote control change as well as my screen. And now you can see the remote control, and you see a little scale here. It's telling me at 13%, 20%. The pictures take a few seconds. But while I'm standing here now, it's uploading that data right to the remote control. So you do have to be within, I would say, 3 to 4 feet of the remote control. You know, it's not like a homeowner can sit upstairs, find this app, and he can go start changing settings and all of that stuff to the system. That's not going to happen. So here we are, 97. I just got my check mark, and there's my new logo that's on the screen, right? So I'm going to cancel here. This will take about 30 seconds. It's going to time out, and then we'll see the new Wales Darby logo that I put on the screen. So that's a cool little feature. I was at a couple of contractors' offices where they had their logos on there. You know, again, you think hotels, stuff like that. You got some good functionality there.
Is there ability to lock out, let's say, installer, user? Someone go and change parameters on that?
Well, you need a password always to get in a new function code.
Password protected.
So you can go see on the screen as we kind of locked out there. There's the Wales Darby logo, right? So you can put your company logo. The homeowner wants to put a family photo. You can do whatever you want, really, to remote control, which is pretty cool. So when we get into the function settings and stuff like that, even the basic settings of, you know, what do I want to see on the remote control, right? If I hit this screen here, I got my temperatures. On this mode, you can see I got the power button at the top here. I got a Bluetooth signal that tells me I'm connected. The time, I'm showing the indoor temperature. Right? So there's a lot of stuff on the screen. I can choose what I want to see on there. If I don't want to show the room temperature, if I don't want to give them access to turning the system off, or maybe I don't want to give them certain modes. You know, I don't want them to change the modes, right? All of that stuff can be configured on your phone and then sent to the remote control. So in this case, I went through the Liberty, and I have this sheet here. I think we have it as an example. This is what we just had on the screen. We'll see how well that comes up, right? So those were all the same function codes you guys just saw. You want to do the banner, right? So I mocked that up for us, and here's the hydronic coil, all right? So we're going to send that to the remote control. And we'll see how quick this is, and if you guys have ever changed function codes on the other system, on the other remote control, you know, as I'm talking, I'm already 90% through sending that. You'll see the remote control at the top here. I'm going to get the check mark in a second, and the screen will go back to the temperature settings that you just saw. As soon as we see that, there we go. Got the check mark. I got the 72 back on the screen. All those function codes, 6 of them were just sent to the remote control. So everything is set up now for a hydronic coil, or in our case, an electric strip. You can go outside, reset the power, pull the disconnect for a minute, and you're good to go. So what I want to do now is just try and, might have to zoom out a little bit here. We have this in heating right now. We're going to turn the machine on. We're showing about 77 degrees in the garage here today. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring this temperature up. You know, if I bring it up to 80 degrees, we can go in the right direction. All right, so now we're at 80 degrees. You see the little waves go out, so that signal was sent. You can see it represented on the bottom remote control as well. Oops, we turn the system on. So there's our 80 degrees.
There's your red light at the bottom.
My condenser, just switch the reversing valve. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here so you guys can kind of see what's going on. You can see our little ribbon there. All right, so now we're kind of chugging along here. The fan started. We're at 2 degrees. My 80 degrees is my set point. 78 degrees I'm showing in the space right now. So I'm just gonna run on heat pump at this point. So if you don't change anything, and I'm gonna go through what those function codes were in a second, but if you don't change anything and we leave it as a default, we're basically running like a traditional two-stage system, right? We're running with an offset, right? So right now out of the box, 5.5 degree or 5.4 degree offset. So what that means is, right, my set point is at 80 degrees, 78 in the space. So if my set point and that difference is more than 5.4 degrees, what's going to happen is you're going to start to see some light flashing here on my electric strip. So I'm going to try and zoom in here a little bit. Bear with me. Go with that focusing. So we'll see that in a second. So now I'm going to increase that spread. I'm going to do it on this remote this time. I'm going to go up to 86 degrees. It gives us a 7-degree difference. Right? So with a little time delay here, you're going to see in a few seconds where my finger's pointing. You might see some flashing lights here if this works out right. If not, trust me, I'll let you know when it happens.
Light represents our heat strip, right? Obviously, it's not functioning, it's not here.
Right.
So.
But what we're basically doing now is we're running on our heat pump. It's saying that our set point is too far away, right? We're not keeping up on a heat pump side. So now we need to engage our supplemental heat. Right? So now in our case being electric strip, I got some lights flashing here. So let's see if you guys can see them. There you go. You can kind of see them here in this corner, right? So those lights are flashing. So now I'm engaging my electric strip as well as the heat pump, right? So now that electric strip will take up what I'm not being able to produce, get us closer to that set point. Once I get within 1 degree of that set point, I'm going to shut off my supplemental heat, and now I'm back on the heat pump until that thing shuts down at set. And so that we can adjust those temperatures, so it's not solid numbers. So if you want to make them closer, you want to make them wider, that's totally up to you. So that's one way we can utilize supplemental heat. It's basically by a differential, right? The other way we can do it is by outdoor temperature. Again, going back to our design and technical manual. Right? So I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. If we get that idea, change that temperature. If you want to bring that closer, temperature wise. What do you want? Set this down. Get closer to our 31. Yeah, I'm going to go through. So the first two that we have on that sheet, if you want to come in, is 42 and 48. 42 and 48 have been a pretty common function code for us when we use a wire remote control.
42 is room temperature sensor switching.
Right. So when we take that remote control out of the box, whether it be the top one, the Kagami, or the UZ5, or maybe even a simple remote control, if we take any of them and we go into, any type of operation, we're utilizing the sensors in the machine, not the remote control, right? So that's not a true thermostat. So what I like to do is put that remote control in the living space and activate the sensor within, right? Now make it work like the true thermostat. And now we can sit there and, get a little bit more accurate temperature and comfort, really, is what it's all about, right? So 42 and 48 would be our first two settings that we would want to adjust. They one of them is already set for us. We just like to confirm it. They should both be on an 01. Again, if you have an install manual in front of you, this will make a lot more sense. So what I'm going to go through right now is just make some notes. Hopefully you guys are taking some notes there. The next one on the list that you'd see highlighted is what? 43.
Yep, 43, cold air prevention.
So that's a cold air prevention. So we want to keep that on. There's sometimes some applications, if maybe we're doing humidifier setup, where we might want to turn that off. Cold air prevention is really going to shut the fan off until the coil reaches temperature. Right. Sometimes, and then we have no control of that fan. Sometimes we want to have control of that fan, and we want to be able to put it on a fan speed. When the machine's maybe the coil's not hot enough. So that's where we get into 43. Next highlighted is going to be
number 48. Room temperature sensor switching.
42, 48 with the sensing. So
yep.
Go past that.
So 60 is switching function
Correct.
for external output terminal.
So 60 and 61 are going to be our next two function codes. And I'm getting these right out of the install manual as I'm kind of going by. I'm using this as a reference. Don't need to see them. But 60 is basically a function code. It's set as a standard for 00. We want to change that to an 11 for auxiliary heater. So basically that's going to tell us that we have something hooked up to that Molex plug, or we have an electric strip plugged into the machine, and we want to control that auxiliary heat source, whatever it may be. 61 comes out, and that's our default I just spoke about, was our offset, right? Or our difference in our set point and where we are in the room, right?
Correct.
5.4 out of the box, so that's 61. So we have some things we can do where we can shut off the heat pump at a certain temperature. We can take this based on that design and technical where we said 41 degrees, we might want to switch over to our heating, right from based on outdoor temperature. We use the thermistor that's in the actual outdoor unit. When it hits 41 degrees, we can change that. So we have the ability to go through from 0 to 9 on that setting. So that's a big one for us there.
Number 71 is next.
Right, and then 71, and a lot of these, 71 is a time delay, right? So when there is a call for supplemental heat, when do you want to make that switch over? Do you want the system to run without a delay for a second or for a minute? We really can go all the way up to 99 minutes. It comes out of the box as no time delay, right? As soon as I see there's a difference of 5.4 degrees or whatever that outdoor temperature is, and we engage supplemental heat, it's going to go right away. There is no delay. So that's a good one.
Go now.
Yep.
So 72, heat pump backup settings.
Yeah, so this is a good one. I like this one a lot. So I'm a redundancy guy. I like to have backup to backup to backup, right? So if we're doing a dual fuel or even a supplemental, something where we don't want, I always want to provide comfort in the home, right? So if I have this hooked up to a hydro coil, if I have it hooked up to the electric strip, if it's hooked up to a oil hydronic system, steam system, whatever you want to hook it up to, basically what's going to happen is if I generate any error codes in my outdoor unit, whether it be a fan error, expansion valve, anything inside that unit, there's a full list of all the different error codes there. But if there's an error in my machine and the remote control picks that up, it'll automatically switch over to my supplemental or my dual fuel, whatever that is, right? So as soon as there's an error, you're going to get the error on the remote control. If there's Wi-Fi hooked up to the system, the homeowner's going to get the email. But they're going to now switch over, being that it's electric strip or hydro, the fan's going to activate, and now we're going to provide heat in the home even when we have an error. So I like that feature, yeah.
73 would be the next one.
73, again, going back to the supplemental heat, if your homeowner wants the ability to turn on emergency heat, maybe the heat pump's just not keeping up or giving them the comfort that they need, they'll have the ability to go into the remote control, hit emergency heat, just like on any conventional thermostat, and now they can turn on that supplemental on their own manually. Right, that's a good one. Then we get into another fan delay, right? 74, right? So that's going to be a fan delay time. So that's only anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, really. There's 4 settings on that. So if we wanted a fan delay, mostly on the electric strip, right? So anytime you have an electric strip, you want a fan delay. This way, when we do satisfy and we shut off that element, we're not killing the fan right away. We want to be able to dissipate some of that heat, not overheat that thing. And then we get into 75, which is going to be our external heater use in defrost. So this is another great feature, depending on what that source is. Obviously, if I had a steam system hooked up, if I went into a defrost, there's not going to be enough time for that steam system to generate heat and put it out in the home while we're in a defrost cycle. We're only talking a maximum of 15 minutes in a defrost typically. So if you had a hydro coil, electric strip, those would probably be your better options, or even a baseboard system. If I went into a defrost, it will activate your supplemental heat or your backup heat, just so that, again, we're giving them constant comfort. Sure, there is no, interruption.
No interruption, right?
And then lastly, the one after that, if we're dealing with the the electric strip, is function 93. And that's basically going to tell the machine, it's going to identify what strip we have in there by kW. If I have a 5 kW strip, it's going to provide X amount of CFM, right? So these are all things we want to, we'll have to go through. So a lot of them, the function codes, I don't know about you, but I like to have an understanding of what I'm actually changing. Some installers, they don't care, just tell me what I need to change and that's it. And that's where this Bluetooth is really going to come into play with this remote control. Just being able to give these guys, different templates, have them saved in their phone, now they know, okay, we did a hydro coil on this system. At the end of the day, I hook up my phone, connect to it, send all those function codes, reset power, and we're done.
What was that app again?
That's called the AirStage Remo.
Remo?
R-E-M-O.
So what is the most important thing about function settings if you want to share?
Resetting power after we're done?
What, I'm sorry, what is that
I
again?
think I said that for you.
Did you say it already? Okay, good. Always remember, any function settings that are changed, they are not in the memory of the machine until you kill power. That's not at the remote, that's at the disconnect.
And that's a good point too, because the settings that we're changing, just keep in mind, they have nothing to do with the remote control. This is just an avenue to get into the actual machine itself. So anything that you are saving is going in here into the board. You know, I had this with an air handler swap out last week where they swapped out the machine. There was another system, I think it was a hydronic system they were tied to.
Right.
But they just assumed that because they used the same remote control, all the function codes are still there, and that's not the case. Nothing is saved in the remote control. Everything goes into the board. So to Anthony's point, yes, we want to recycle some power there. We've got some good questions, it looks like, or a lot of communications questions.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry, we're getting a little close to the camera. We're just trying to look at the screen here.
Yep.
Old eyes.
This
lenses.
too, when using a drain pan. Oh, that's a good question, Ray. So we didn't get to that far yet, so we'll tie you in right now. So up top here, so one of the nice things about this, and what I like compared to a conventional system, if you're getting into the multi-position, you've never done it before, wiring-wise, it's a little bit different than your standard system, where conventional systems have a breaker outdoors and have a breaker indoors. We only have the outdoor breaker, right? We wire this air handler just like we would wire the wall mount behind Anthony there, right? Our 1, 2, and 3 wire without ground. We power it from the condenser. So there is no secondary breaker needed for this air handler unless we're doing an electric strip, then that's going to be by its own, right? But the air handler itself does not need a separate power source. So we give you the 1, 2, 3 terminals up top. We give you our remote terminals, Y1, Y2. And then next to the Y1, Y2, we give you another 1 and 2 terminal. That's a dry contact for tying in. So for tying in a float switch, right? If you're doing an emergency pan or something like that, that needs to be a normally closed switch. Okay, that switch is in 2 wires. That's all you would need. You go to that 1 and 2 terminal. If that float opens up, the minute you do that, the machine shuts down. Right? As soon as you fix that problem, you get rid of the water, you clean the drain, all of that stuff, and that switch closes again, then you can resume operation. So, check another 2 drains, go back and forth. So that's a great question, Ray. Placing traditional, natural gas furnace. If you're trying to replace a traditional furnace, well, when you get into something like that, yeah, you might be going electric strip at that point. You might not be using a natural gas option. If you're getting rid of the fossil fuel, we've run across that many, many times, Jeff.
Sizing and selection, keeping those KW down. This is key for that heat loss.
Yeah, I mean, when you don't have too many options there when you get into natural gas furnaces and stuff like that. So I would agree, yeah, your natural gas options probably off the charts. You're not doing that. It would be electric strip at that point, unless you're putting some kind of a hydro coil.
I was going to say, how far do you want to go?
Yeah. I mean,
We'll build you something.
You can be creative. Sure.
I got electric boilers now.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
put the electric strip in.
Electronic, yeah, I like that. So we're seeing some interesting things. I think we got that, and we'll continue. Oh, yeah, exactly. Jeff's being a little creative as well. Yep. So using a water heater. Yep. So we got an electric boiler that we can do the same thing. Small little package guy, put it on the wall.
1 kW.
Pipe it to a hydro coil, and you're good to go. You're all electric. So yeah, there's a lot of little features there. If there's any questions to the function settings, getting your hands on this guy. You said, this is a movable piece. We load this in a truck behind us here. Meet you out on a job site, meet you at your shop, spend an hour or 2. It's not a time-consuming, training, but we're able to get your hands on to this thing, go through all the function settings. You want to do it based on outdoor temperature, what we can do it, experiment with it, change settings, see how the system operates. We have some things in here. It is an EPM blower. We have fan speeds and stuff that are pre-programmed. We do have the ability to add 10%, drop 10% of our airflow. So there are some function codes there when it comes to the air side, if we're doing some zoning stuff maybe. But other than that, that's pretty much what we got as far as the function settings and making adjustments on the remote controls. So if there's all the questions, we're gonna continue on. What about water stage? Don't ever say that word again, Jeff. Just kidding.
Bye now.
Water stage is it's an awesome product. It is in Europe. Unfortunately, it is not coming to the United States, and it has nothing to do with heating either. You know, water stage is really just for domestic, so it's a different animal. But we have some other products there that can help you out, Jeff, for sure. We would love to have those conversations with you. The fan used would be, yeah, not for hydronic heating yet. So, but like I said, we have many different products under the Wales Darby portfolio that when we talk about air and water type stuff, we would love to have those conversations. But that's for another day. So I'm just going to come back to this PowerPoint real quick, just share with you guys.
What was just coming up? Just the power thing?
So we're going to switch gears over here to the split terminal heat pump.
STHP.
This is something we've had some fun with over the last couple of weeks, months. Some trade shows in the city, visiting some building owners, stuff like that.
Very vertical approach to New York City, right? All PTACs. But I'm finding even hospitality's east end of Long Island, these, you know, we have these efficiencies for summer dwellers. You know, they're out there, and there's an opportunity to see maybe upgrading existing, right? I'm not too sure if I'd want to cut a big hole in the side of my building, but if it's there, we now have options to give them some efficiencies with the Fujitsu inverter.
Correct.
And I've seen a lot of those dune roads, you know, beach, they put the outdoor unit underneath the building in the dirt. It's like crazy. So it might have some longevity. I mean, you're basically throwing it in the ocean, but for the most part.
So I'm just going to kind of pan over this way a little bit, and you can see over to my right-hand side behind us the display that we put together with this split terminal. You can see on the screen, I'll get rid of this in a second so we can kind of get a better look at it. But offered in a 9,000, 12,000 platform, right? So really what it is nothing more than the same indoor head that you guys have seen in the past, you know. So that does not change. It's the ASUH 9 LMAS unit. So that's pretty standard. You're already putting this in if you're doing single zone systems. And then we have this guy. This is the unique piece. This is the 9,000 model condenser. Weighs about 40 pounds, 50 pounds, something like that. Very small. Fits in a standard PTAC sleeve. This is the Fujitsu sleeve. So we do have a full replacement. It's very well insulated. Has a divider in it. Base pan heater in the actual sleeve itself. Drainage out the bottom. So, you know, there's some things and obstacles maybe we might have to overcome when we talk about drainage and stuff like that. But you have options, right? So you do have your line sets. In our case, we ran them within the wall of this display. So if this was going into a home, you know, be it a condo or wherever it's going, you know, what we've seen in some hotel applications is they're running their line high down, right, back into the sleeve. So your line sets, your drainage, your wiring, all of that stuff's going to end up back into the sleeve here. We can go up to about 25 feet of line set. 6 feet is a minimum, maximum 25. Yep. So we do have some flexibility with it, especially in those condo applications, hotel applications. We've seen some really nice creative stuff. If you do have some abnormal sleeves, we can adapt to some of those. We like to get a full sleeve replacement. Unfortunately, it doesn't always fit the bill for most buildings, but you know, this is a unique piece, you know, and depending on your application, you know, we've had some that I've been working on or, you know, just kind of gotten eyes on where we've utilized some older sleeves, you know, maybe something that's smaller, 36-inch sleeve. You know, this is your standard 42.
Free air is key.
Yeah, free air is key, but you know, if we end up in some of these weird spots, we can get some approvals through Fujitsu and their engineer teams, you know, to kind of move forward with those jobs. So they are becoming very popular because of the footprint, and we don't need the sleeve, you know, so keep that in mind. Maybe I'll expand your kind of thinking a little bit right now.
Small, quiet.
Yeah. Maybe you got a sunroom somewhere, you know, you don't want that big condenser out there. I can get this down on the ground. It's still 220. We'll put this thing on the ground outside the patio, or maybe a little condo. You can hang this thing up top and run it through a wall. So be creative with it. If you got questions on it, again, there's the full line catalog is in the is in your handouts there. So don't forget to take that.
One thing about the sleeve, we do not provide the outdoor grill.
Correct.
So with your selection, again, free air is key. Make sure that you're not starving the sleeve itself. So
Right.
too much closure, it's going to reduce airflow.
Keith, my friend, those are great questions, buddy. So that's a good question, right? So when we look at an older PTAC, usually the sleeves are very leaky, a lot of noise, so that's something we're always dealing with now that we have the Fujitsu model. This is a very well sealed system. Once we close up this condenser here, we kind of eliminate, to what Keith is saying, the fresh air that came in from around that PTAC. So once you seal this thing up, we eliminate that. And yeah, now that's a whole nother conversation, right? Now we're talking about fresh air makeup, which is something we can definitely talk about. We have some products there. You might be talking ERVs at that point. The more, if you start tightening these places up like passive home, yeah, you're going to need the need for makeup air. So that's a good question. How do you overcome it, right? It's going to be a case-by-case basis, on that application, I would say.
912 split terminal heat pump. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, there's not much, this is the display. We'd like to bring this out, just kind of get people to hear this thing. On a webinar, it's going to be very difficult for you guys to hear the effects of, how quiet this machine really is. I mean, I can show you just some of the panels that are on here. I mean, it's very well gasketed, insulated. You can kind of see the reflective. They did a really good job. We got the service access in the top here, which is really nice. And this gets all put on here.
Well gasketed, right, to say.
Seal that all up. But we do have a service access on top of the condenser, which makes it really easy to get to. Not a problem, Keith. But yeah, very nice machine. Again, this is not every application, but sure, opens your mind up a little bit. So we definitely wanted to talk about it and show it to this morning. What are we doing with questions?
So that's pretty much this stuff is in that full catalog, by the way. So you can grab that. Gives you a little bit of broad stroke. Remember, the D and T is key. So you'd want to go into the Connect site. If you've never been to the Connect site, it's available. You just go there, bottom of FujitsuGeneral.com. Once you get to the Connect site, there's a bar. It says search, and you can put in any model of unit, controller, remote perhaps, and all the information is going to pop up. It's a great resource. I mean, to say I remember all of this information, no, I just know where to find it.
Exactly. So again, just recapping, kind of went through, how we utilize supplemental heat, the applications, importance of doing a full load calculation, and that's no difference from this guy to the machine behind me, the split terminal. We got to do a load calc, figure out what we need, look at those design and technical charts, get in there the capacities and all of that stuff. We definitely want to, if you're chasing the rebates, just be careful. Again, we've always sized air conditioning systems by air conditioning load, and now we're dealing with the heat pump rebates and all of that stuff. We're just be careful. We just want to protect you guys, make sure you're applying this equipment properly. Other than that, I think that's all we got for you this morning. Appreciate you guys joining us. Again, grab those handouts. We do have, and I know somebody else mentioned, so we're going to go to that real quick. Any of the videos that we're doing, if you missed some of the function codes this morning, you'll be able to go back later on or tomorrow and watch some of those videos. With WalesDarby.com, you'll be able to find it up in the training and events tab at the top. You'll find the future webinars. Next week, we'll be doing I believe it's Tango Hydronics next week.
Old
next
and
Wednesday.
new, ECM.
Correct. So we're talking about some of the ECM technology.
Supposedly it's coming, 2024.
I believe when I see it. So, like I said, any video you want to see, got some new stuff up on the website. This will be up there tomorrow. Feel free, take a look. Sign up for some of those other webinars. Got another couple of questions coming in. Do you have links to current rebate and tax info? Jeff, we do not. We just cover such a territory with the different utilities. We don't have a resource. Really, you want to get to wherever that job is or wherever you're working mostly, get to that utility page, whether it's, Jeff, where are you calling? I don't know, I'm not sure where you are, but in our territory, it'll be Con Ed, PSE&G, so.
Anybody jumping on the ECM pumps, seeing the advantages, features, zone valve, Delta P versus Delta T, which we have as well. We have both. So next week, come join us.
Yeah, another great place, Jeff, for rebates, is go to the Fujitsu website. You know, you go to the residential tab, go to rebate finder, put in your zip code, and you're going to get links to all your local utilities or whatever. It's going to really what's going to show you is it's going to show you rebates based on the products that we have. So it'll kind of give you an idea money-wise if it's a whole house rebate or partial home, whatever it may be. You're going to get a lot of that information there, as well as the Inflation Reduction Act, right? The IRA. So you don't get money with that, but well, you get it's an end of the year kind of rebate through your taxes. So that's an interesting one as well. So you'll get all that information right from our Fujitsu website. Thanks, Joe. All right. Well, if there's no more questions there, we're going to hold it open for a couple more minutes. Well, we're kind of wrapping down here. You have my contact as well as Anthony's on the screen there. If you're on a computer, you got your phone handy. Take a little camera shot of that QR code. You have our info there.
I always ask if you don't mind, if you want to call us, just give us a little bit of heads up, text us your information, first name, last name, where you work, maybe where you're coming from, or hey, we were on the webinar today. We go on our phones, and then this way you come up as a contact and not 10 digits.
Exactly. Yeah, Joseph, we're looking forward. Thanks for joining us, you and your group. I think I saw about 12 of you guys, so that's awesome. Appreciate it. Thomas, it was on the screen before, walesdarby.com. You watch all the webinars, all the recordings. Yeah, this one, I would say within a day or two, but by the end of the week, the latest, this webinar will be up there. And then we'll be nice and current.
Have a great day.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it.
Hump day.
Definitely is. All right, guys. Well, we're going to say have a good day. Enjoy the rest of it. And we'll see you next week. Take care now.
See ya. Have a good one.